All right, guys. Well, thank you for hopping on a call, whether you're on the East Coast or West Coast, taking some time today to chat about housing and really just have a discussion. My name is Carrie Lovelace. I work as the director of alumni engagement and stewardship. I've been on staff since the beginning of September, and I'm in talking with Mike. He's got a lot of knowledge, a lot of years of experience, and we wanted to create a space, a platform for these discussions to take place. So currently, right now, we're planning on doing them quarterly and really focusing on topics that are timely for that quarter, or the kind of month or two after the quarter, so you can plan a little bit as a group, whoever's in charge of your housing relations, and just use this small group of folks to also bounce ideas off of, where you've found success, where you maybe have struggled a little bit, and just create this space for you guys to come together and chat. So I'm going to turn it over to Mike. He can give an intro if you'd like. I know he wants to share a little bit about TBHC, how they can help support in some of these efforts. And then we're going to dig into the three topics for today, which is really surrounding how can we go into the summer with a game plan for success that will set you up well when you start the fall semester. So talking about closing houses for those groups that do close their chapter facilities over the summer, talking about some basic summer to-dos, and then also having a conversation about how do we successfully navigate the planning and execution of a work day or a work weekend throughout the summer months. So Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I had planned to maybe introduce myself a little bit, but there's nobody on the call that doesn't already know me. So I won't waste your time with that. I've worked with or spent time with everyone on the call. I was going to talk a little bit about what the TBHC does, but I think pretty much everybody on the call knows exactly what we do. I will say this much, the beginnings of the TBHC go back to the Building Loan Fund, back to the 1950s. Started out with just a tiny little pile of money, and they've grown it into quite a corporation. And a few years ago, we separated off into the new entity, which is a Triangle Building Housing Corporation, which allowed us a lot more flexibility. And now we operate, I'll just quickly say, we operate out of three buckets, basically, which is finance. We still do kind of all the bank stuff that the Building Loan Fund used to do, mortgages, loans, grants, debentures, investments, all that kind of stuff, loan guarantees. We operate also in the property bucket, which is home ownership. We currently own Michigan State, Michigan Tech, and Oklahoma. And then we also do property management. We do it at the three properties we own, as well as we have two clients currently, Michigan and Purdue. We thought we might grow about one property over 2 or 3 years, and we managed to grow 5 properties in about 3 years. So it went very quickly. And we see a bright future for the organization, and our mission is obviously to continue to support the national fraternity through the support of housing and creating environments in which our young men can prosper, be successful, and grow in a safe environment into great alumni. So having said that, my plan was to kind of just go through the 3 topics, spend a few minutes on each one, and then I'm just going to open it up for questions. So closing the house for summer, obviously the main things are safety and security. If you're not going to have anybody living there, you're going to want to have, if you don't already have some sort of alarm system, the house needs to be secure, all the doors need to be locked. And you need to make sure that if you don't already have some alarm system, that might be money worth spending. If you do have an alarm system, then obviously you want to make sure that whoever the first phone call is, that's an important thing. Is there someone there to pick up the phone if the alarm goes off, if the alarm company calls, the fire department calls, or the police call? Because normally the undergraduates would handle that as those things showed up and then call an alumni advisor. But if there's nobody there, if the house is vacant, and again, these things I'm talking about are if you're closing the house for the summer, or even for a break, really. It changes a little bit in the winter if you're not in, sunny Brentwood, where UCLA is, then you're going to need to worry about pipes and things like that. But for the summer, you want to make sure your HVAC is set at a sensible place. You don't want to be running air conditioning if the house is empty. At least, a lot of people set it back to, even 80 degrees just to keep it so you're not melting things or causing problems or causing your refrigerators or things like that in the house or to run too hard or too often. But you certainly want to save yourself some money by making sure your HVAC's in a good place for the summer, that with the settings on it makes sense. But again, the biggest single claim that our insurance company, James R. Favor, fields on an annual basis are water damage. So, and even in the summer, pipes can spring a leak, things can go sideways. There can be a huge back pressure from the city for some reason and cause things to overflow or flood or pipes to break. So beyond the idea of having the house secure from intrusion, vandals, thieves, those kinds of things, our own members, believe it or not, breaking it over the summer, you want to make sure that the house is being checked on. Is there somebody doing a walkthrough on a regular basis? Is there someone who's visiting that property, checking it, at least once a week, if not a little bit more? Now, you can cut down the visits a little bit for specifically water if you invest in some flood sensors. That's a newer technology over the last few years, but they've gotten pretty good. You put them in the spaces where you might have water intrusion, and they literally just sit on the floor and they go to and they're connected to Wi-Fi. You can also have them on various pipe systems if you have sprinkler systems or plumbing or the main coming in from the street. But you can have some flood sensors that will go off and alert, almost like you do for fire or burglary, that'll alert a responsible party to the idea that you're having some sort of water issue. You can also put them on the meter, and you can set them up almost like you do one of those smart thermostats where you tell it kind of exactly what the usage should be. It monitors your usage over the course of a year, and it knows when the usage goes down to very little, the house is empty. And then all of a sudden, if you get a spike, it will send out a signal, it will send out an email, it will let you know. And if it's not the code or if there's no response to that, it will turn off the water to the house, which will also limit damage through water. Again, the biggest claim Favor fields every year is water damage claims.
Hey, Mike, at Iowa State, we have guys living in the house over the summer, but this sounds interesting. I'm not familiar with the technology. What are the names that might be the leader in these kinds of?
I was afraid you're going to ask me that. I don't have them in front of me, Dave. I can send them to you. I have some brochures in my office, but there are 3 or 4 companies that are doing it now.
Pardon?
There are 3 or 4 companies that are doing it now.
All right, we can do our own research then.
Yeah, it's very simple. It's just basically they signal you if there's a presence of water.
Well, there's two that yes, there's water sensors you put into a basement that detects water present. I don't think this one goes as far as you were talking about, but what it is a device that clamps onto the water meter and can detect the rotation of the mechanism inside the meter and determine how much water flow there is. So you could have online, you could monitor it. Yeah, I'm not too sure about setting limits. I haven't gone that far, but there are companies that do that.
Yeah, and because water claims are the single biggest claim for insurance companies, this technology has really advanced in the last few years. And again, there's several companies doing it. You Google one thing and you'll have 10 companies, but they have been very beneficial in saving claims on water.
In this case, it clamps onto the water meter. It could be the one that your city has or a secondary meter if you have one somewhere else.
Yep. But Dave, I'll make a note to send you some of the stuff I have. But again, there's lots of companies doing it right now. Yeah, there's lots of companies doing it right now. Okay. It's very popular in commercial applications. There's some residential applications for things like your washer. You can put on the hose and they monitor the flow. And if it is flowing if it flows beyond what it normally does for 1 minute, it shuts it off. Those are some of the smaller residential applications, but commercial is a much broader, sensors on the floor, things on the sprinkler system, things on the water meter. They have holistic sort of soup to nuts systems that will monitor what's going on in the water, and certainly in winter breaks when we have a lot of freezing pipes, but summer as well. It'll save you a lot of money and they're not terribly expensive.
Yeah.
So
Okay, cool. Thanks.
so really the things about summer are safety, security, your HVAC, and having someone visit the building on a regular schedule to just check in. Has anyone broken in? Is something gone wrong? Is it way too cold for no one being in the building, or way too hot for no one being in the building? Things like that. You want to have someone who's willing to do what I would call a walkthrough. And oh yeah, and things that alert others to, and these are kind of the same thing you would have at your house. Things that alert others to no one being there. Is mail stacking up? Have we stopped mail service, papers, subscriptions, all the various things that might show up at a house? Service appointments. You have someone who can meet, who is the call if there's a service appointment. Are there service appointments that you get during the year that you don't necessarily need in the summer that you want to put on hold? So you really just need to take a holistic look at what the interaction with the facility is and make sure that if the building is empty, that those things are taken care of. Another great one is motion censored lights on the outside of the building. Nighttime is when things go sideways. So anytime you have some motion censored lights around the outside of the building, and you can have those on or off, but definitely you want to have them on during times of vacancy. And it's really just a way to scare. I mean, the old saying is, a professional thief is going to take your stuff and there's nothing you can do about it. We only really try to prevent what we call the casual thief. The guy that's breaking a window looking for something to steal to sell for whatever reason. Guy or girl, don't want to discriminate. But you'll never stop a professional thief. We really work to stop or deter the casual thief. And it's mostly going to be kids in the neighborhood, other fraternity guys, stuff like that. I'm going to move on to summer projects if everybody feels good about hot closing.
Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Greg, where are you from? FS, is that?
Michigan State.
Michigan State, okay.
Yeah, Michigan State, FS. So I've been a member since fall semester 2016, and I'm a recent graduate. I graduated in May of 2020.
Okay, and then Jim Marshall, where are you? I think you're probably on mute.
Jim sits on my board. Jim's one of my board of directors.
Okay.
From Purdue. He's a 65, I think, initiate at Purdue. If I have that right, 65. I think Dick Bobian 64 at Michigan. But Jim Marshall's a Purdue grad, 65 initiate, and he is one of the board on the board that
I remember now from convention, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say you've probably met Jim.
No, I did. Yeah, I did, and I remember now. I put that together. My father-in-law was an engineer from Purdue in 1948, but he wasn't a Triangle.
So summer projects. So summer is a great time when the hustle and bustle of the regular year is calmed down. There's generally more vacancy, if not the house is completely closed. It's a great time to schedule things that are either major or minor. The kind of things that are medium you usually take care of during the year, but major projects like an HVAC renovation, completely replacing furnaces or boilers or a roofing system, or, those are great times to schedule those things. Any kind of renovation projects, because you basically have generally most, if not all of the kids out of the way. Now, you're probably saying, well, duh. Well, the point I'm trying to make with that is you really need to be planning a year, at least 6 months, if not a year out for those projects. These aren't things you're going to want to schedule in short term, mostly because there is an extreme level of unavailability of contractors, vendors, service technicians, unless you have a regular contract or unless it's a small, if they're just going to come in and do a basic monthly or annual service of your HVAC, most companies can do stuff like that. But if you're going to do anything significant, it is extremely hard to get tradesmen right now. I can remember when we tried to do a renovation at Michigan. Greg will remember this. And we didn't end up doing it because the amount of the renovation was 3 times the value of the building. But the other problem, if we had moved forward, was we couldn't get a single contractor to promise to start on the renovation any sooner than 18 months out. So that's why I would say anything you're going to do over the summer that has any significance, where you're going to need tradesmen, you really need to be scheduling those things, putting down deposits, guaranteeing, having them under contract, guaranteeing completion dates. You have move-in dates you have to adhere to. So you want to really get them under contract for completion dates, with start dates, scope of the project, and you want to get that stuff locked in no later than 3 months before, but you should really be planning it 6, 9, 12 months before for major projects. And if you're going to do anything like a significant, like a huge renovation, I mean, you can talk to the guys at Illinois right now. Those things get planned 2 years, 3 years, 4 years out. Purdue is considering a facility replacement, but it's 5 to 7 years out, but they're already talking about it, because it's such a major undertaking. What are you going to do if your renovation runs over? What's the plan for housing your students? How are you going to pay for it? Where's that money going to come from? Stuff like that. So anything that you're going to do as a summer project is something you really want to plan. I'm a big movie quote guy, and there's a great movie called The Hunt for Red October, and there's a great line by the former Tennessee Senator Fred, I can't think of his name.
Fred Thompson.
Yeah, Fred Thompson. And he said, Ruskies don't take a dump without a plan, son. And I've always loved that. And you got to have a plan. So that's always my number one thing. If you're going to do anything in a facility, have a plan. Anyway, and that kind of ties into my last subject, which is planning a summer work day. A summer work day is a great time to, and this, by summer, I mean you could do it right at the end of the semester, so it includes the undergrads, or right at the beginning of the fall semester, so it includes undergrads. But in that general time between about, April 20th and August 20th, in there I would call summer. For you guys on the West Coast, obviously quarterly, you start a little later, but you get my point. You're not going to generally want to do big projects, again, because those need to be planned, and you're probably going to need people that are insured, licensed, and bonded. Certainly if you're going to have a permit work done. But if you're going to do things like put in a flagpole or work on the landscaping, every year Purdue has a fall work day, and they put out, Jim would know better than me, 10 or 20 yards of mulch. They rake, they pick up trash, they clean, they wax. They have a lot of tile. They strip and wax the floors. But the big thing is you can use this event, even if you don't have a ton to do. It's a great event to create community in your chapter, because alumni start to think of it as the big day they come back, where they're not also engaged with a football game or a baseball game or some other university event, but it's a great day they can put on their calendars. They can bring their family. Because what you're going to want to do, main thing, food. You're going to want to have plenty of food. You're going to want to have some beverages. You're going to want to set up the day so that people show up maybe early and get coffee and donuts. Then they work. And then at lunchtime, you feed them a really nice sort of barbecue meal or something to that effect. And then maybe a little bit of work after lunch, but more social. And then maybe even have an evening social planned. It's not a bad thing if you think you're going to get a big enough turnout to have a hotel block. Work with a hotel to have 10 rooms or 15 rooms on block for people that might be coming into town. And the big thing is, if you can create this as an annual event where it takes place on the same weekend of every, it's always the second Saturday in August, or those kinds of things, you can start to build that community and really engage your alumni. But also it gives your undergrads a chance to connect with those alumni, career-focused, co-ops, internships. So yes, the summer work project, and again, before I forget, planning, communication, put it in the newsletters, get Carrie involved. Carrie can absolutely help, and get the word out, but start to build a recurring day for this event, and make sure you have a plan. But once you do that and you start to do it year in and year out, Purdue does they used to do 2 of them a year. They may only do 1 now, but like clockwork, it's always the same time of year. They get great turnouts. I went 2 years in a row, and I think there must have been at least 100 people there both years, and half those people were alumni. And then have almost like a committee that runs that involves alumni, because they're going to do most of the communication and most of the planning. You're hoping to get some undergrads who will show up and help, hopefully. But it's a great event to, yes, get some things done around the house, paint, clean, maybe do a small project or 2. But actually the greater significance is building bridges, building community, building connections with your alumni base. And it gives them a thing to put on their calendar year in and year out that they can engage with the undergraduate chapter. So that's all I got. I'm happy to just open it up for questions and see if there's anything you guys want to talk about.